Is it time to bring in Crystal Palace assets? Should I look at Enzo Fernandez ahead of Game Week 9? We take a look at my team selection, transfer plans, and sell, monitor, and keep section. So let's jump into it. So before we take a look at my Game Week 9 team, let's take a look at some of my top targets going into the next few weeks. One of them is Daniel Munoz, obviously of Crystal Palace, a wing-back. One of the most attacking defenders in the league, by the way. He's already managed, as well as 3 clean sheets, 1 goal and 3 assists, really high in terms of expected goal involvement. You can see that he's also averaging around 8 DEFCONs per game, which isn't as bad. I know it's not as good as the likes of obviously his teammates Richards and Lacroix, but it is still really, really good. And what he does lack in DEFCONs, he does make up in attacking threat for me. You can also see he's projected to get around 23, 24 points over the next 6 game weeks, which I think is pretty good. The data is from, of course, Fantasy Football Scout. Now, he's just so attacking. He's a joy to watch. I think as a non-owner, I hate not owning him. Now, if you take a look at the fixtures, I think a lot of people will be slightly worried about that Arsenal fixture, and rightly so. You know, one of the best teams in the league, both in form, defensively, all of it. You know, just an all-around excellent team. Probably favourites for the title now, but I suppose that's debatable. I don't think people are going to like that first Arsenal fixture, so I think looking after that obviously could be the key. You know, they go on to face teams like Brighton, Manchester United, Burnley, Wolves. So the fixtures are really, really good after Arsenal. Daniel Munoz is definitely someone I'm looking at. No, it's another Crystal Palace that I'm looking to target in the coming weeks, and it's Jean-Philippe Mateta, obviously the Crystal Palace striker. Crystal Palace have some of the best fixtures coming up. That Arsenal fixture, again, is far from ideal. You know, you can't rule out Crystal Palace doing something in that game, whether that's scoring or keep a clean sheet. But I just think it's just not great, you know, buying into assets before Arsenal away from home. Full stop for any team. So, but Mateta is someone that I really like. I know he's been quite unfortunate. I know he's frustrated owners a lot. He's obviously missed, I think, more big chances than any other striker in the league, and that's had a negative effect on how many people see Mateta. But I think you just look at the data there. He's got 5 goals already, but so like taking out all the context out of it, 5 goals in his first, you know, 8 games is pretty good. And then you take a look at how many big chances he's getting. It's unbelievable. So 15 big chances in the league so far. Obviously, again, just going back to the point, he's missed a lot of those chances, but we all know what Mateta is capable of. He's also on penalties for Crystal Palace. Now, I think the issue for myself and a lot of people is which striker do you take out? I know that a lot of people have got, obviously, Gyökeres. You know, obviously everyone has Haaland, but Gyökeres, you know, João Pedro as well. So fitting him in, especially this week, is definitely an issue. So I think waiting one more week, just evaluate how those front 3 are doing, bar Haaland, obviously, evaluate how, you know, Gyökeres is doing and how João Pedro is doing for Chelsea, and then maybe look to bring him in ahead of Game Week 10. But he is definitely someone I am looking at. My third and final transfer target before we take a look at my Game Week 9 team selection is Ismaila Sarr, the Crystal Palace midfielder. 3 goals and 1 assist already. Now, bearing in mind he has had a bit of time off due to injury, I think that is pretty good. And obviously he comes in at a nice price, around 6.5 million. He's under 10% ownership as well, so kind of getting a little bit of a differential there, although I expect that ownership to kind of rocket over the coming weeks, especially after the Arsenal fixture. Now, in terms of DEFCON, you know, he's not doing great. It's only 6 per game, but he is predicted to get 27 points over the next 6 game weeks, which is actually more than the likes of both Mateta and Munoz. For me, Sarr is probably one of the easiest players to switch to. I have a few kind of midfielders at that price point. Obviously, Kudus, also NDI as well. Kudus coming into a difficult set of fixtures soon, and we'll cover that shortly. But Sarr is definitely on my radar, and a player, being realistic, you know, could come in very, very soon. So let's now take a look at my team. So guys, rather than bore you with a full review of Game Week 8, you can actually see there that I climbed 1 million in terms of rank last week with bench boost. I think I ended up on like 82 points, which was pretty good. So meant a rank rise of 3.7 million up to 2.7 million after a really, really terrible start. Now you can see that I've got 4 transfers this week as well. So in terms of my goalkeepers, Yes, I mean, Dubravka has got pretty good odds actually to keep a clean sheet this week, but I think it'd be silly not to go with David Raya. Super, super expensive now, Raya, and there could be a potential future switch on the cards, but for now, he stays. Has a really good home match against Crystal Palace. He's actually got 50% chance of keeping a clean sheet this week, which is joint highest with Chelsea. So for me, straightforward with the goalkeepers, I'll be starting Raya. Now, as you can see in defence, I think there is a decision to be made, actually. You can see that Marcos Senesi starts. He actually nearly got red carded in the last match, so probably lucky there. He does play Nottingham Forest at home, and they have a 40% chance of keeping a clean sheet this week, so definitely start those Bournemouth defenders, regardless of whether Senesi, did well or not in his latest game. You also have to include Gabriel this week. I think he is the best defender pick in the game, actually. I know he's kind of veering towards 6.4 million, 6.3 million, but he's fully worth it. Managed a goal and assist against Atleti during the Champions League match, which is obviously huge because he got an assist prior to that, a goal prior to that against Newcastle. So, he's showing so much goal threat, isn't he, recently? It's hard to back against him. Now, my third and final slot is massively up for debate. Obviously, Mickey van der Ven would usually take up this spot. He recently dropped in price, actually, to 4.7 million. Tottenham have just not been at it at all. They've been pretty woeful defensively. Obviously they kept the clean sheet against Monaco, but that was down to the fact that Vicario, I think, prevented like 3 XG, which is incredible. I think he got player of the match as well. So that explains that. But prior to that, they conceded a lot of goals, and I'm just not feeling the Tottenham defence at the moment. And an away fixture to Everton will also be quite tricky. So I've decided to go with Rodon. They have a 40% chance of keeping a clean sheet this week, Leeds. I may have mentioned that earlier, but I just think, I think they are in the top 4 actually to keep a clean sheet this week against an out of form West Ham. And Rodon also has goal threat. He showed that in the recent match. He also scored for Wales recently. Richards obviously makes last on the bench because he is up against Arsenal. He probably could get DAFCON, and he would be an excellent option moving forward. I think just on Richards, we'll cover him more soon, but I think he could be potentially blocking a different Crystal Palace triplet. But at 4.5 million, I just think he's a perfect option. Again, potentially a season keeper. Now let's take a look at the midfield. So in midfield this week, I'm not going to lie, it was really, really tempting to sell Kudus. Obviously, Tottenham haven't been fantastic. They've been good in terms of results, but they have largely overachieved both statistically and when you watch them, very kind of lucky assists, lucky goals, it feels like. So they've kind of been living on borrowed time. They failed to score against a really poor Monaco defence in midweek. So I'm really, really not sure about Tottenham moving forward or long term, and the fixtures are getting tough, but I still think Everton is quite a good fixture from an attacking perspective, and Tottenham's best asset is obviously Kudus. I don't think this week is the right time to sell him. Obviously, we'll go through my potential transfer plans shortly and who could go and who could stay. But this week, I think I'm going to stick with Kudus. I do think he could pick up a return there, but eventually, his price range as well, I think he's around 6.8 million. He could easily be switched out to someone like Sarr. I've also got Bruno Fernandes. I think there was a lot of debate around his output in general. But obviously he performed really well against Liverpool. Got picked up a pretty decent return, and also has Brighton at home next. Which Brighton are conceding goals. They have been conceding a lot of goals. I don't think they've kept many clean sheets at all. Might be 1 or 0. I'm not too sure, but they are very leaky. So, and United have also impressed kind of offensively, haven't they? In terms of underlying attacking data. I think they rank one of the highest for expected goals, if not the highest in the league. So I think keeping the Man United a penalty taker and attack is really important, actually. Semenyo is going absolutely nowhere. He's vice captain this week against a poor Nottingham Forest defence. I can't see, even with tough fixtures, I can see Semenyo. He's the talisman. He could well keep returning. Now, also in my midfield, I've got NDI. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I would have kind of been considering selling him, but now I've got kind of other players that I want to get rid of, other fires. I'm not ruling out selling him, but I think long-term fixtures are really good. I mean, Tottenham at home isn't terrible, especially considering, how they've been recently defensively. So I think it's a good fixture. I definitely would start him this week. You can also see Reinders on the bench. He is first sub, but he could well go to second sub or even last this week. He came off early against Everton last week. He didn't start in the Champions League. He's not really doing much in terms of goals and assists. But again, he's getting the starts. I know he didn't get one in the Champions League, but he keeps starting in the Premier League. He's also really, really cheap. I don't think you can get a better player for that price down there. Obviously a lot of people went to Stark, who did terribly, and is in a promoted side. So it's a difficult one. So Ryan is definitely a one to monitor going forward. Now the forward line is really kind of under debate at the moment. Haaland is relentless at the moment, so he will take the captaincy this week, even against Aston Villa, who have shown maybe slight improvements, but I still would back Haaland to score. Obviously scored against Villarreal in the Champions League midweek, but outside of Haaland, it's a little bit tricky because Gokaresh isn't really. I say he's not doing it. He's not really done much in the Premier League, and yes, Saka is looking like a bigger threat from open play. But you take a look at the recent win, Arsenal's win against Atleti, and they absolutely hammered him, and Gokaresh ended up with a brace. So it's really, really positive news. Yes, we want to start seeing form in the Champions in the Premier League, but it is nice to see out of form players scoring in different competitions, because it could really, really help with that overall confidence. So let's just wait and see with Gokaresh. If he continues to not do much in the Premier League, then he's going to become obviously a serious issue. And we could also say similar for João Pedro, right? Obviously, Cole Palmer's out at the moment, but Anzo is back in, so he won't get pans João Pedro. So we're kind of relying on him fully, from open play threat, and he's not really doing that either. He's not really shooting much. I can't remember his last return actually. So, and you have to take a look at all of the good striker options out there at the moment. Obviously, Mateta is a serious contender for the front line, and my front line, and probably a lot of other people. So, I think we have to be really careful with striker spots, because they do seem, they seem up for grabs. The strikers are kind of coming into kind of a phase where we like them at the moment, and they're popular again. And there seems to be lots of great options. The only tricky thing is obviously with João Pedro's upcoming fixture against Sunderland, you really want to sell him ahead of Sunderland and bring him Mateta before Arsenal? Definitely not. So I give it one more week of João Pedro. Obviously, Delap is coming back, which could push João Pedro to a number 10, which would probably do him the world of good, to be honest. It would probably make him a better player. But if it's a pick between João Pedro not on pans, who's not in form, compared to a Crystal Palace striker on pans, getting a load of big chances. Yes, he's missing some, but still scoring. Then it might not be a tough debate. So we'll just see how it goes this week. But that is my front three. So this is the sell, keep and monitor section of my team selection videos. This is where we can just go into a little bit more detail about the players, on specifically why, I'm monitoring or looking to sell or keep. Obviously, there's a lot of obvious players in the keep section. You've got the likes of Dubravka, Gabriel, Haaland, NDI and Rodon, who would just have no need to sell at the moment. I mean, that's not me saying that they definitely won't go, but my intention is to keep them, for now anyway. In terms of the monitor section, that there does seem to be a lot more. Kudus is now in the monitor section. As mentioned earlier, I don't really trust Tottenham offensively at the moment. They just feel like they're getting lucky, and Kudus is obviously he's obviously overperformed as well. He's been fairly lucky in some of the assists and attacking returns that he's got. So he's also in the monitor because he's at that price bracket where I can just switch him to someone like Sarr or even Enzo Fernandez. So that's why he's in there. Obviously, Ryan has already mentioned minutes, his output. Could I get someone better? Could I upgrade him? Could I get money from somewhere else and boost him up to a 6.5? Because there does seem to be several of them at the moment. Ray is obviously in there because he's blocking a potential Arsenal triple up. I could go for Timber. I could go for Saka and Gokaresh. Who knows? But he's definitely in there. He's very, very expensive as well. Now Bruno Fernandes is in there. he seems to be a bit of a cash cow at the moment. It just feels inevitable that I will sell him eventually. I'm just not sure when. He's obviously a pretty good asset. You know, he's going to get DEFCON. He's going to get pans. He's playing for a team who are, you know, amassing quite a lot of XG at the moment, but he's not a major threat. And so although he will tick along, I'm not too sure if he's going to get the big calls. I mean, I could be wrong. We could see that, but it does feel like if I want to make an upgrade, then you know it could be the money could potentially come from him. Sanasi, you know, tough fixtures soon. Gokarash, we've already discussed that. You know, he's been a bit out of form. Yes, his 2 goals in the Champions League is good, but will I eventually want to move to Saka or get rid of, you know, Gokarash to kind of bring in, you know, the likes of Mateta or another striker coming into good form? Richards is also in there. I really like Richards long term. He could well be, you know, a permanent keep, but he is also blocking another Crystal Palace spot. Obviously, you've got Mateta, Munoz, and Sarr, so he will block one of those entries into my team. Now, the sell section is also kind of tricky as well. Van der Van, you know, I don't see Tottenham, you know, keeping clean sheets. He's not actually doing much in terms of DEFCON either. I know he's got the odd, you know, what feels like lucky goal. I think he got one in the Champions League, got one in the Premier League before I bought him, which wasn't ideal. But I think I don't trust the Tottenham defence. Maybe I look to go for someone with more DEFCONs long term. You know, he could even be upgraded to someone like Munoz. And that is the same, similar with João Pedro. He's not performing at the moment. The fixtures are really good, unlike Tottenham's, obviously. But you know, with no pans and other strikers available with pans and maybe doing more from open play, he could well become a sell in the next couple of weeks. So they're my plans for game week 9, guys. That is my sell, monitor, and keep section. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you guys again soon.